This is the communication game. In the previous activity, your students made observations of unknown objects inside the pillowcase. In this game, your students will continue to make observations of objects. However, now they'll have to communicate their findings to fellow teammates. The equipment you'll need for this activity includes a set of Duplos similar to these, one set for each team, and then 2 file folders for each team. Let's take a look at how the room will be set up to play the game. We've set up these Fisher-Price people so that we've got a set of 3 teams here. If we look, this student here and this one over here make up one team. Then this student and Mary here and Susie make up another team, and then we've got another set of teammates over here. The students that sit at this table here each have a model of Duplos that you have built for them. Each one is exactly the same and hidden inside the file folder. The students here in the center sit in chairs, and over on this side we have another set of students, each with the same set of Duplos, but they're not built. Again, they're also hidden behind the file folder. The students over here are called the describers. Their job is to describe how the model looks to their teammates here in the center, which are called the messengers. The messengers take information from the describers and then communicate it to the builders, which are these students at this table. The job of the builders is to construct a model exactly the same as the one that the describers have built over here. Remember that each model here is exactly the same, and it's a model that you've provided for them beforehand. Let's look at how play begins. We have the instructor, stationed here on one side of the playing area, and you'll give the signal of go for play to start. After you say go, the messenger student here will dash over to the describer's table. He or she will describe what the blocks look like, how they're positioned, what's on the bottom, what's in the middle, what's on the top, which angles they're at, to the messenger. Then the messenger will dash down here and to his best of his ability tell the builder what the describer has told them. And then the builder will go about constructing the model. And the messenger can go back and forth as many times as necessary. And eventually, now all students are doing this at the same time, eventually one of the builders down here will feel like that they have the model successfully built. And then he or she will tell his messenger to call time. And then the messenger lets you know to call time. They'll give the signal time, and then you'll say very loudly time. When time is called, everything stops. All communication comes to an end, and then it's your job to come over and take a look and see if the builder over here has indeed constructed the exact same model that the describer over here on this side had. And you can check back and forth to see, and if it is exactly the same, that team that was successful there earns a point. And then you start over with a new model behind the describer's folders here. Now, if this team here was not successful, they did not get the blocks in the exact correct order, you give the signal to go again, and communication continues. Students can dash back and forth as many times as necessary in order to get the model completed. Now, when you call time, like I mentioned earlier, all communication must come to an immediate stop. And if there's a case where, let's say, Jenny here was communicating to Susie, and you call time for another team down here, but they continue to talk back and forth. Well, we have a rule that says communication must stop, and before play begins next time, this team will have to wait 5 seconds. We say they're in the penalty box for 5 seconds, and what you'll do is you'll come over and stand next to that messenger person there, and you'll say go, and these teams will begin to communicate once again back and forth, but you'll hold on to this student and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then she's free to go. And so that will encourage the students to understand that when you call time, all communication must stop. Now, the describers over here, when they communicate, can use words, they can use hand gestures, any way in order to get the information to their messenger. Now, note that the describer is not allowed to communicate directly with the builder. Everything must go through the messenger here. You can, as you go from round to round, obviously you can begin to construct models which are more complex, and students have a really fun time with this game as the models become more difficult to build. Usually after 4 or 5 rounds with the students in these positions, you can rotate. The describers can become the messengers become the builders, and the builders can come back around over here and now become describers, and you can rotate. Obviously, if you have fewer students, you just set them up, in sets of 3s, or you can have, a larger group, and that play there becomes just really a fun, good time. The object of the game, obviously, is to have your students practice making observational skills, communicating them to teammate, and then communicating once again to the builder. You can have more difficult levels, and this becomes really fun, is where you begin to take away capabilities of the describers. Initially, the describers could use their voice and hands to describe the arrangement of the blocks, but you can take away their hands, and so these students here can only use their voice, whereas the messengers can still use voice and hands obviously down here with the builders, but the describers can no longer use their hands. Another variation of play is to take away their voice, and so the describers here can only use their hands, and so if they have any sign language skills, or they will usually improvise in some way to be able to communicate, point to a color of their clothing, or a color of something in the room in order to communicate the color of the block to the messenger. The messengers then and the builders can still use all communication capabilities. And so you can come up with different variations. You can have the messengers here. You can experiment with what happens when you have a distraction in communication. For example, you might require that once the messenger gets information, instead of being able to run directly to the builder, they get to their chair and they have to run a circle around their chair. And that provides some, usually, distraction for them, and they get down here and they still have to have their thoughts square and straight in order to make the communication accurate to their builder. And so that's a variation which is interesting. At the end of the game, it's always fun to discuss with your students what they liked about the game, what they didn't like, what were some skills or that they practiced, what worked best for them, which was most difficult. And at the end, they'll have a much better idea about what scientists do as they observe things that they work with, and then communicate those findings to others in their field.